Sarah's hands trembled as she counted the crumpled bills in her wallet. $20. That's all she had left until her next paycheck, still 5 days away. The evening wind whipped through the parking lot of Wilson's grocery, carrying with it the bitter reminder of another month struggling to make ends meet. She glanced at her shopping list, mentally calculating what she could afford. Bread, milk, and maybe enough peanut butter to make her daughter Emma's school lunches for the week. Her stomach tightened as she crossed off items they'd have to do without. That's when she saw him, an elderly man huddled against the store's brick wall, his weathered cardboard sign trembling in his calloused hands. Hungry. Anything helps, God bless. His eyes were fixed on the ground, shoulders hunched against the cold, a quiet dignity in his defeat. Sarah's fingers closed around the 20 in her pocket. She thought of Emma at home, waiting for dinner, of the empty kitchen cabinets, of the stack of unpaid bills on her counter. But something about the man's expression, the way he seemed to shrink into himself, pulled at her heart. Without letting herself think twice, she approached him. "Sir?" she said softly. His eyes met hers, startled by the gentleness in her voice. "Would you like to get something to eat?" The man hesitated, his voice rough with disuse. "Miss, you don't have to. Please." Sarah interrupted, extending her hand. "I'm Sarah. Let me help." Inside Wilson's, Sarah watched as the man, who introduced himself as Robert, carefully selected the most modest items. A small loaf of bread, a pack of cheese slices, some fruit. His hands shook slightly as he reached for each item, as if afraid they might disappear. At the checkout, Sarah handed over her last $20 without regret. Something in her heart told her it was right, even as her mind raced with worry about the coming days. As they stepped outside, Robert clutched the small bag of groceries to his chest like a treasure. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You don't know what this means." Sarah smiled, pushing aside her own anxiety. "Take care of yourself, Robert." That night, as Sarah tucked Emma into bed with a simple dinner of leftover pasta, she tried not to think about the empty pantry or how they'd manage until payday. Emma's sleepy voice broke through her worries. "Mummy, you look sad." Sarah forced a smile. "Just tired, sweetheart. Get some sleep." Later, lying awake in her own bed, Sarah's thoughts drifted to Robert. She hoped the food would help him through at least a few days. The sound of distant sirens and the occasional car passing outside her apartment window created a lonely symphony that matched her mood. Morning came too quickly, bringing with it the familiar rush to get Emma ready for school. As Sarah hurried down the apartment steps, keys jingling in her hand, she stopped short. A sleek black car was parked directly in front of her building, and beside it stood 2 men in suits. One of them stepped forward, his expression serious but kind. "Are you Sarah Mitchell?" Sarah instinctively pulled Emma closer. "Yes." The man smiled warmly. "My name is James Thompson. I'm an attorney representing the Westbrook Foundation. Would you mind if we spoke for a moment?" Sarah's heart raced. Had something happened to Robert? Was she somehow in trouble for helping him? "Of course," she managed, trying to keep her voice steady. "Emma, honey, wait in the car." Once Emma was settled, Sarah turned back to the men, her anxiety mounting. "Is everything all right?" James reached into his briefcase and pulled out a photograph. Sarah's breath caught. It was Robert, but not as she had seen him yesterday. In the photo, he wore an expensive suit, his face younger and full of confidence. "The man you helped yesterday," James began, "was Robert Westbrook, founder of the Westbrook Foundation. For the past month, he's been living on the streets, testing the kindness of strangers in our city." Sarah's mind spun. The homeless man she'd given her last $20 to was actually... "Mr. Westbrook was deeply moved by your generosity," James continued, "especially when he learned that you gave him your last bit of money, even though you're struggling yourself." Sarah's cheeks flushed. "How did he—" "He has ways of finding things out." James smiled. "What matters is that out of hundreds of people who passed him by, you were the only one who stopped to help, despite your own difficulties." He pulled an envelope from his briefcase. "Mr. Westbrook wanted me to give you this, along with his deepest gratitude." With trembling fingers, Sarah opened the envelope. Inside was a check that made her knees weak, The amount was more money than she'd ever seen. I can't accept this, she stammered, trying to hand it back. James gently pushed her hand away. Mr. Westbrook insists. He also wants to offer you a position at the Westbrook Foundation, overseeing our community outreach programs. The salary is substantial, and it comes with full benefits. Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks as the reality of what was happening hit her. Just yesterday, she'd been counting pennies, worried about feeding her daughter now. "Why me?" she whispered. "Because you showed true compassion," James replied. "You gave when you had nothing to give. That's exactly the kind of person we need." The second man stepped forward, holding another envelope. "Mr. Westbrook also wanted to ensure your daughter's future. This is a fully funded college savings account in Emma's name." Sarah's legs gave out, and she sank onto the apartment steps, overwhelmed. Through her tears, she could see Emma watching curiously from the car, her small face pressed against the window. "There's one more thing," James said softly. "Mr. Westbrook would like to meet with you properly this time. He's waiting at our offices whenever you're ready." An hour later, Sarah sat in a plush office, still trying to process everything. The door opened and Robert walked in, clean-shaven now, wearing an impeccable suit, but with the same kind eyes she remembered from yesterday. "Sarah," he said warmly, taking her hands in his. "Thank you for showing me that kindness still exists in this world. Your compassion didn't just touch my heart, it restored my faith in humanity." Sarah wiped away fresh tears. "I just wanted to help." "You did more than that." Robert smiled. "You reminded me why I started the foundation in the first place, to help people who help others, even when they have nothing themselves." He sat down across from her, his expression serious. "I've been watching how people react to those in need. Most walk past without a glance. Some gave spare change out of guilt. But you gave everything you had, without hesitation. That's rare, Sarah. That's special." Sarah thought about that moment outside Wilson's, how something in her heart had simply known it was right. "I couldn't just walk away," she said softly. "That's exactly why I want you here," Robert replied. "Your heart is what this foundation needs." As Sarah drove home that evening, Emma chattering excitedly in the back seat about their changed fortunes, she thought about how differently this day could have gone. If she'd walked past Robert like everyone else, if she'd let fear override compassion. She pulled into their parking spot, noticing how even their shabby apartment building seemed different now, filled with possibility rather than despair. "Mommy?" Emma asked as they walked up the stairs. "Why did that man help us so much?" Sarah knelt down to her daughter's level, remembering Robert's words about kindness and humanity. "Because sometimes, sweetheart, when you help others without expecting anything in return, life has a way of helping you back." That night, as Sarah tucked Emma into bed, after their first proper dinner in months, she noticed a small paper bag on her kitchen counter. Inside was a loaf of bread, some cheese slices and fruit. Attached was a note in familiar handwriting. "Thank you for sharing your last $20 with a stranger. Your compassion changed more than just my life. It will change countless others through your work at the foundation. Never stop believing in the power of kindness. Robert." Sarah smiled, her heart full. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and responsibilities, but tonight she was simply grateful for the reminder that sometimes the smallest acts of compassion can lead to the biggest changes in life. As she got ready for bed, Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Welcome to the team. RW." She fell asleep that night with a smile on her face, knowing that her life had changed not because of luck or chance, but because she'd followed her heart when it mattered most. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe for more inspiring tales of kindness and compassion. Remember, sometimes the smallest acts of generosity can create the biggest ripples of change.